Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Well Done podcast. I'm your host, Kat Vong, and today we are diving into the subject of posture and back pain. For years, I thought my bad posture was just a side effect of, carrying twins, working long hours at a desk, hunched over my computer, and maybe even getting older. But recently, I went for a posture assessment, and it turns out that the way we breathe, the way we sit, move, even how we process stress is deeply connected to our overall alignment and therefore our overall health. And poor posture isn't just about slouching. It's about how your body compensates. It's about imbalances in the body and just unconscious patterns that we all have and that we repeat every single day. And so things like pregnancy and injuries are just a couple pieces of the puzzle. Today's guest is Ramin Waraghai, and he was the one that assessed my posture. And when I went to see him, I mentioned that I had sprained my right ankle a couple of times when I was a teenager, and I had brushed off those injuries thinking, they're not a big deal. They were just sprains. But Ramin pointed out to me that injuries, especially related to the feet or, around your feet, your ankle, your heel, can cause actual major imbalances in how we move our bodies and potentially causing us to overcompensate over time, especially if the injury didn't heal properly. All right, let's get into it. I am super excited to introduce you to Ramin Waraghai, who is a mind body coach, author of the book Effortless Back Pain Solutions, the founder of Rebalanced, a mind body hub and online training platform helping people restore their strength and flexibility. And he is also the founder of a new wearable device, Rectify, that helps people track and train their posture. So, as you can tell from this intro, Ramin is truly passionate about helping us achieve better balance in our bodies by combining both the mental and the physical. And actually, recently, I had my own posture assessment with Ramin, and it was so eye opening because I learned that we might not even know our bodies at all, and that day to day activities, as well as our previous injuries, can really have lasting impact on our physical alignment. So, with that, I'd like to welcome Ramin.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Ramin, I'd love to start by hearing a little bit more about your journey. What led you to this world of posture, movement, mind body coaching, and how that all led to all of the ventures that you have undertaken?
Yeah, so this journey of mine basically started when I was 14, and since then I was suffering from back pain, and it would come and go. And I used to play soccer back in Germany. That's where I'm from originally. And even when I went to university and I was playing semi-professional soccer at that time, I would still have that pain, and it would only get worse and worse, up to a point where when I was 23 in soccer practice, I twisted my torso and I threw up my back and couldn't really get up anymore. And I was just hunched over for a week. And then I got diagnosed with two herniated discs in my lower back. And as if that wasn't devastating enough at that time for a 23-year-old aspiring to get to the pros, because I was really close to making it. Just a few weeks later, I also got diagnosed with bad knee arthritis in my left knee. And a year and a half of rehab every day and two surgeries later, the doctor told me that I should quit my soccer career and I would probably need a knee replacement in a few years. Unwilling to believe that, I tried to learn everything I could get my hands on about exercise methods to help with my recovery. So I did a lot of continuing education classes all over the world. And I came across some great coaches and teachers that I learned a lot from. And I then created my own training program where I would do exercises every morning for about 30 to 45 minutes for 6 weeks in total. And after these 6 weeks, my back pain was gone, and it was gone for good. I never had back pain anymore after that. And then a few months later, I also figured out how to help myself with my knee pain. So I did the right exercises to correct my knee joint and to strengthen my knee joint and so on, so that I was even able to go and play soccer again up to 6 times a week without any pain. So
Wow.
Yeah, from my own experience with this and my own success and just helping myself, where nobody else could really help me, like no physical therapist that could help me, and the surgeries also didn't really do anything. I wanted to just share what I learned about the body with other people, and that's when I created online courses against back pain, then knee pain, and shoulder pain, and so on. And yeah, I made it my mission to help people to rebalance their body and their mind.
What did you find that was different about conventional approaches and methods versus what you were learning? Why wasn't the surgeries and the traditional physical therapy you were doing, why wasn't that helping?
I mean, first of all, I think it's just the time that you really have in a regular rehab with your physical therapist. It's just like usually 30 minutes. I mean, I used to be a semi-professional soccer player, so I had maybe an hour, but still, like they had a regular program that they would do with everyone. So it wasn't really individualized to my personal problems, and they never really took the time to screen me for where the root causes of my problems came from. They would just give me a kind of a one size fits all approach and massage, the knee a little bit and give me some exercises to do. And I remember when I got out of rehab from my back pain, all I got was that my physical therapist told me that whenever I'm standing, I should bend my knees slightly, and that would take off the stress of my back. And that was the only tip he had for me. He said, other than that, I don't really know what to tell you. And that didn't really do anything. I remember I would still go to concerts, and after 30 minutes, I just couldn't enjoy the concert anymore because I had like nagging pain, and even though I had my knees bent. So yeah, it wasn't really individualized, and also more the way they are trained is sometimes a little more like old school knowledge. There's a lot of like new things coming out, new studies being made, new breakthroughs in different fields and sciences, which take like sometimes 20 years to really become something that is taught in regular physical therapist schools or universities.
Right. So what came first? Was it your book and addressing the back pain first, or how did you come up with your whole approach?
First, I created my training program, my 6 week that I turned into an online course. And then I wrote the book about back pain, which is more a holistic approach to back pain. So first I was just focused on the exercises, which, helped myself. And I used to be a personal trainer at that time too. And I had mainly clients that had back and neck problems. And so having them with me, training them in person, and then even giving them exercise to do at home helped most of them. But in the book, I'm also writing about a holistic approach that encompasses all areas of our lives: the biological, physiological, the emotional and psychological, and the social and environmental areas. And there's certain things and activities that you can do in all of these areas that can help you, especially if you're in chronic pain.
Got it. If somebody like me were to come to you, and I did, with a issue with my posture, with an injury, let's say, like how would you approach that? What would you look at first? What would you find out about the person?
First of all, I would go through a little questionnaire asking you about your history, if you had any injuries, if, what your day-to-day life is about, if you have a lot of stress in your life, and so on. And then we would go and do a thorough assessment of your posture and of your movements and all the different joints in your body for me to get a holistic idea of where and how your body is compensating and how it's dealing with gravity in your everyday life, and so that we can really look at what might be the root causes of your problems, because we know in exercise science and in rehab that oftentimes it's not the victim where the problem originated, but it's the perpetrators are in other joints of the body. So if you have a problem in your
Mm,
knee, we look at your hips and your ankles. We say we look at your bad neighbors. So look at the joints that are above and below, and you can find dysfunctions there that are the root causes of the problems in your knee joint in that example. So I'm trying to get a holistic idea so to then give you exercises and things to do that help you with the origin of that problem, instead of just trying to look at your knee joint and trying to strengthen the muscles around it and hope for the best.
got it. So actually, I'm just going to focus on back pain because I feel like it's so prevalent. Are there misconceptions then about the origins of back pain, versus what we might think? So my husband has sometimes he gets back pain and he always says something like, "Oh, it's genetic. My dad had back pain," right? Or it might be from lifting heavy weights for a long time. Like, are there myths or misconceptions that people have about the origins of these types of problems?
Yeah, there are many, many, I would say, misconceptions or misleading ideas that sometimes pick like one thing that they find and they think that's the only root cause. And that's why in my book, I wrote about what I call like a barrel that you imagine you have a barrel or a bucket that is filled with all kinds of improper or imbalances that you can have in your body. And also, as I said, in the other areas of life, if you are under a lot of stress or if you are chronically depressed and so on, that can all fill up your barrel to a point where it just overflows. And then people sometimes think, oh, I've just picked up this bucket and that's when I threw up my back. But it wasn't just that one movement that was like a bad movement and that's what caused your back problems. It's your whole barrel or your bucket was filled up, that this was just like the last straw that led to you now having that problem in your back. So because if you have that kind of thinking, you know that there are many, many ways to help yourself to lower the level of how filled up your barrel is and to open the drain cock so that all the real root causes can get out of it and you can really get rid of your, especially chronic back pain. That is usually what people think where it comes from. So it wasn't that one movement. It's also not necessarily that your muscles were too weak, because people sometimes think, oh, I just gotta strengthen my back muscles, and when I have stronger muscles, and that will save my back. But it's usually a case that if you strengthen muscles that are already super tight, and the back muscles usually when you have pain are super tight already, then you make it worse often because you put more pressure on it. So you want to know, why is it so tight in the first place? And as I said before, it's often that your back has to compensate in your everyday movements for your hips not really being mobile enough, or you don't use your hips properly when you're bending forward and so on, or even your thoracic spine from like hunching over all the time is pretty tight, and then your low back has to compensate for that. And if you get rid of these root causes, then you don't need to have super strong back muscles in order to spare your back, but you just need to find that alignment again, because there's a lot of people out there that are pretty thin and don't have super strong back muscles that don't have back pain. And then on the other hand, there's a lot of super strong buff guys that you would think, oh, he has huge erector spinae back muscles, and they are in severe pain. So yeah, there's many misconceptions in that way, and genetics might play a little role, but we know from epigenetics, a whole, I can hold another speech on just epigenetics, that it's way more about your lifestyle. And you might have, being raised with your parents, you might have adopted some of the behaviors from your parents that you were just like doing that, what they were doing. So you just followed everything and learned from them. That's why you might develop the same problems later on, but it doesn't mean it's genetic. It's still been trained. You've been trained.
Right. And I'm sure many people are wondering too, how do our current day-to-day activities contribute to imbalanced posture, or I guess like chronic pain? So as an example, I work on the computer every single day and I'm hunched over my keyboard. So in your perspective, are you seeing a lot of problems that are commonly attributed to something like that, like computer work? What are some of those easy things that we on the day-to-day can kind of think about when we're going about our daily tasks?
Yeah, 100%. I think most people nowadays, they sit hunched over, looking down on their phones all day, working on the laptop, don't have proper ergonomics, where they have a proper setup of their office desk. And from being just hunched over for so long, it causes, certain muscles in the back and in the front side of your core to get tight over time. And it also has a cascade of other issues that are developed from that, in terms of your breathing is not optimal anymore if you're not in a proper stacked position, and even all the way to your mindset and your mental abilities are not there anymore, because you're just sitting slouched in that position, which gets you to not have as much energy and confidence that's been proven that you have if you have a more upright posture. Amy Cuddy. She's a posture researcher, and she found out that if you would just sit more upright, or what she calls in a power pose, before you get into a job interview, that you're much more likely to get the job because you have more confidence and just more energy overall than if you would sit slouched before that interview. So slouching is definitely an epidemic that we're in nowadays. And yeah, that's also why we created the sensor shirt to help people with that.
Actually, yeah, let's talk about the sensor shirt. So, what inspired that? And just tell us about it. What is your mission with that?
Yeah, so back when I did my online courses and I wrote my book about back pain, I at some point realized that I can help people only so much with exercises, because if they would do their exercises 2, 3 hours a week, still the other 165 hours in that week, they can mess it up. If they just sitting slouched for 8 hours at the desk all day, they don't move at all in their everyday life. Exercises can help to kind of reverse some of the negative effects, but they can't always fix everything, because only if you really change things in your behavior in your everyday life is when you might have really lasting effects. And so I came across these two guys at an event that just got out of their PhD thesis, where they created a sensor strip that kind of looked like a spine, and they didn't really know what to do with it. They were like, oh, it's a sensor strip that can measure its own position in space. And, we were thinking of different things, what we can do with it, but they didn't really have a clear idea of what to do with it. And then I told them, hey, why don't we use it to track people's postures and people's spines? And so we created a t-shirt where we have a pocket along the spine on the backside, where you can slide the sensor strip up, and then it tracks and trains your posture in your everyday life, and it measures all parts of your spine in your everyday life. In fact, let me show you just the sensor strip itself. So this is the strip. It has 18 measurement points that go along your whole spine. And then whenever you are sitting slouched for too long, it buzzes you. It gives you like a little vibrational alert here to help you to switch up your posture again. Or also because it measures all planes of motion, meaning flexion, extension, if you are twisted to one side, or even if you're side bended to one side. And if you are in your favorite, or you call favorite position that you might not even be aware of sometimes, it can buzz you whenever you're in that specific position. For me, that was, for example, when I'm working on my laptop, I have my elbow on the table and I'm kind of sitting like this, and that is already like a 30-degree rotation in my spine, and then I'm typing with my right, and that over time can lead to imbalances and to certain muscles to tense up. And that's when I develop more neck problems in my left neck than in the right, because I always have that neck muscle here firing and being on. And so it would buzz me whenever I'm in this position for too long, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm
Oh,
doing that
interesting.
again, so now I'm switching up the position again. So yeah, it's very precise in the feedback.
So it buzzes and then it comes with an app, right? So then you would look to see how to correct yourself. Would it give you a recommendation?
Exactly. Yeah, it basically comes with an app. I can show it to you right here, if you can see that.
Cool.
If Yeah, now
Yep.
things are moving because I was moving the sensor. So whenever I'm leaning forward with the strip, it's the avatar is doing the same, and then you get points whenever you are sitting more upright and when you're moving more, and this is your overall rectify score. And based on your behavior in your everyday life and on a movement assessment, a flexibility assessment, you then get your individualized exercise program that is about 20 minutes to get the muscles that you weren't using firing again, and the ones that you overworked to stretch out, to open up again. And then we also have a bunch of mini exercises here that you can do while you're in the office, on the office chair, to just give your body a little bit of a stretch, a little bit of some certain muscle activations. 2 minutes, 5 minute short exercise routines that can also make a big difference for a lot of people that are just sitting for too long.
So then one would have to wear the shirt with it, right? So I
Exactly.
guess my immediate thought is, what if you don't want to wear the shirt? Or is there another alternative to put that on your back? Oh, you have the
Yeah,
shirt
so
here.
so yeah, so it's just an undershirt, right? It's
Okay.
white, very invisible, and has this little pocket here in the back that you slide the sensor into, and then it would measure you in your everyday life. So the whole idea of it is that we first, by just wearing it for a few days, we get an idea of your habits. And once we have that, we can already give you some great recommendations. And you get your individualized training program. And then if you don't want to wear it in your everyday life, you can just do your exercises for a little bit, or maybe do like just the short little exercises. So you would get notified, hey, you've been sitting for a long time now. Why don't you get up and do some of these stretches? And then maybe a few weeks later, you're going to retest, wear it again for like a day or two, and then we can see how you progressed with your posture, and if you got better in your flexibility assessment and so on. So you don't necessarily have to wear it every day. If you did, you get the reminder whenever you're in that position for too long, but it also has a great benefit if you just wear it a little bit in the beginning, and then every once in a while to just get a status quo of where you're at. And we're also working on, but we're not there yet, eventually having an AI model that learned from your behavior, that then you don't necessarily have to wear the shirt anymore. You might just have to wear AirPods that we can connect with your phone. And then we know just from their feedback from the AirPods where you are in space, where your head is in space, because the
Oh,
AirPods can track
interesting.
where, yes. And then we know, oh, now you're slouching, and you tend to be slouching more in your upper body from our experience. So, we buzz you whenever you bend your neck forward, or you bend your whole body is going forward, because we know that's usually when the rest of your spine is going forward as well. We're playing around with that so that you don't necessarily have to wear the shirt anymore on a regular basis, but we still can use just the feedback from your AirPods to give you some very accurate recommendations on your posture.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so much of this must be just about getting the person to be aware of their own body, right? Because, like you mentioned, it's these habits that we're building that we don't even realize. Like, I do the same thing that you do, where I lean onto my hands all the time, and I never think to sit back and correct myself. And I know that you also emphasize this idea of mind body connection and using the brain and neurology, right, to influence movement. So, can you elaborate on that? What is that approach about?
First of all, I think you can't really separate the body and the mind, because they're always interconnected. It's like whatever you're doing has an effect on your body, but it also has an effect on, your mind, your psyche, your brain. And so I'm trying to look at both when I'm working with people. So for example, when I have somebody coming in and they say they've been pretty stressed out the last few days, then I'm trying to do stuff with them that would calm them down, because we know we have the autonomic nervous system that has our sympathetic and our parasympathetic. And the sympathetic is basically responsible for fight or flight, for being active in our everyday life.
Hmm.
And then the parasympathetic is more for rest and digest and recovery. And if people are just stressed all the time, they're all the time in their sympathetic nervous system, and they can't really switch over to the parasympathetic. And we know that when you have a balance of both, that's when you're the most powerful. That's when your body can heal the best. That's when your body can get back to its homeostasis, that is the balanced state. And that's where healing actually occurs. So for a very stressed person, I'm trying to just calm them down with a breathing exercise where you focus more on the exhalation than the inhalation. So you have longer exhalation and then a shorter inhalation, and that gets them more into their parasympathetic nervous system. And then vice versa, some people, they sometimes might need some more activation because they are just maybe even depressed or just like tired all the time. And for them, it's more about activating their sympathetic nervous system through doing more breathing exercises that would emphasize the inhalation more, or even going to hyperventilate. There's some methods that use hyperventilation to activate your sympathetic nervous system. And that can help to really help people just calm down. And once they calm down, when we activate a parasympathetic, you have the nervous system in your body being more relaxed. And if it's in a relaxed state, it gives you more mobility even. So I can do a simple breathing exercise with somebody, and measure their joint movements, their shoulder internal, external rotation, getting them in a certain position, do a breathing exercise, activating the parasympathetic nervous system, calming them down, and then all of a sudden, after like a few breaths, they already have like much greater mobility just from calming the nervous system down and activating a parasympathetic nervous system.
That was so interesting because that was for me when I went to see you and you were teaching me the breathing exercises. I actually had no idea that our breath was so tied to our even our like flexibility and range of motion. And so you had mentioned, right? And you said this when we're really tense, we take shorter breaths, and then that's affecting the way that our, I guess, like how open your chest or your body and your upper body is, right? And so for somebody who's listening at home, how can they what is something that they can maybe quickly do if they're noticing that they are taking these shallow breaths and they are not relaxed? Like, is there something that they can quickly do at home to open themselves up?
Definitely. First of all, I would like people to understand that, you hear diaphragmatic breathing all the time, where people try to activate the diaphragm. But if you really understand how the diaphragm works, you understand that it's not only about breathing into your belly, but it's more so about expanding your rib cage in all directions. And we often are pretty compressed in the front side of a rib cage. So more like the chest area is compressed from sitting slouched all the time. And then also even the back side. People sit like, or stand, when they stand and they stand more upright, you're kind of getting squished from the back and often from the front. So your whole rib cage is kind of compressed from both sides. And by doing specific breathing exercises, we can open up the back side where there's a lot of nerves running through the back side of our rib cage and the spine area. And also the front side where we want to open up the chest area. And so one simple thing that you could do is you can just lay on your back. First, I would start by having your arms reaching forward. If you lay on your back, reaching forward more in like a 45-degree angle, because if they are in a 45-degree angle and you reach forward and you have your shoulder blades moving apart, you now can inhale into your back better, and it opens up the space between your shoulder blades. And so now you would try to breathe in through your nose, try to direct the air into the space between your shoulder blades, and then you sigh the air out slowly and fully through your mouth. Hold your breath for a second and then breathe in. Keep reaching with your arms. Keep expanding the space between your shoulder blades. And now when you breathe in again, you can expand the area even further, even better. And do that for like 5 to 7 deep breaths, and you will open up the back side of that rib cage in a great way. And then for the front side, you just same thing. You lay on your back. You can have your knees bent, or I often have them pressing against the wall with a 90-degree angle in the knees and the hips. And you have your arms more in a 90-degree angle in the elbows and laying on the floor like that. And then you can direct the air into the front side of your rib cage, into the chest area better. So you do the same thing. You breathe in through your nose. Really try to expand the front side here, and then again sigh the air out until you might feel a little bit of an engagement of your side abs. And if you can hold that tension in your side abs, you can keep your side ribs down. And when you then inhale again, you can, instead of directing the air into your belly too much, you can really direct the air into your chest area so that you can focus on opening up the front side, the chest that is, like, as I said, super tight from sitting slouched and from having the shoulders moving forward in our everyday life. So these two exercises alone can make a huge difference for people's postures and all kinds of issues that they have in the body. And if you test your internal rotation in your shoulder or your external rotation, you will see great changes right after one of these breathing exercises. Usually when the front side is opened up more, you have a better internal rotation in your shoulder. And when you open up the back side more, you increase your external rotation in your shoulders. So that is a great measure to see objectively if these exercises helped you. And if they did, then I would continue doing them. Because, yeah, they can make a big
Yeah.
difference.
I mean, it's so interesting to think about opening up the backside because, like, to your point, we all focus on either the front or the diaphragmatic breathing. And so, how does this approach differ from maybe other methods? I'm not super familiar with physical therapy. Like, is breathing a huge part of overall posture correction, or is this something that you discovered through your own research and then you combined everything together?
Yeah, I mean, there's not too many people that focus on breathing that much when it comes to training people and giving them exercises. But I learned from it's called Posture Restoration Institute out in Nebraska, and they were the pioneers in the understanding of what the breath is doing in terms of proper activation of the diaphragm. And there's some great teachers that learned with them as well out there, but they're very rare. So not everybody is doing that. But I think they're missing a very important point if they don't incorporate breathing and specific breathing exercises, and also what you just said, learning to expand the backside. Because yeah, most people are just focused more on belly breathing or expanding the front side. But if you imagine the diaphragm, that's this muscle that is inside your belly area, like on top of all the organs, and it's attached
Hmm.
to the insides of your rib cage on both sides, and it usually has a dome shape. And if it's in that dome shape, it has a what we call a perfect zone of apposition. It can, when it contracts, it can push the organs down properly, which at the same time expands the rib cage and pushes the organs forward. And that creates intra-abdominal pressure, works in synergy with your other diaphragm, which is your pelvic floor. And if it's not in this optimal dome shape anymore, because you're hunched forward, that's when it kind of looks more like that, or when you're too extended, when people are like very extended in their back, it's just not in this perfect position anymore where it has this mechanical advantage to work properly. Then we have to compensate, and we often compensate by using the accessory muscles, which are our neck muscles, to kind of pull the rib cage up instead of having the diaphragm to open it up to the sides, or some other muscles in the body like the back pushing the rib cage forward. And all of these can over time lead to an overstrain in these areas because we don't have that proper activation of the diaphragm anymore. And that's why it's important to work on that breathing first, how I believe, because then we have that proper zone of apposition and we have that proper stacking of the rib cage on top of the pelvis. And then from there, all the exercises we do can just become way more efficient.
Right. What are some ways that that can become misaligned? Because when I went to see you, I mentioned, I thought it was because I had been pregnant with twins. Is that something that can commonly affect that area? Or what are some other common things that we should be aware of that impact the way we breathe and the diaphragm and all of that?
Yeah, definitely. Pregnancy is one important thing that can affect it, and all of our daily habits, of course. Injuries can play an
Hmm.
important role. But coming back to the mind-body connection, it's also just being stressed in everyday life and then just breathing shallow. And that is also a typical root cause of why we use our neck muscles too much, breathing shallow and just pulling our shoulders up, which is also a little bit of like we're kind of hiding ourselves sometimes. We're kind of hunching over, and that tenses up the neck muscles as well. And yeah, it's just the fight or flight that we really want to try to get people out of by balancing the breath, because you ideally want to have proper or just as long inhalation as exhalations, and they both as long as possible. But most people, they're all over the place. If you are more depressed, you usually have a very long exhalation. So you go like, and then short inhalation. You go, and what's interesting is the etymology of inspiration. The word inspiration comes from the Latin word inspiratio, means to breathe life into your spirit. So if you're depressed, you're lacking inspiration in your life. And that's also you're lacking to breathe in properly. You can't breathe in fully
Oh.
anymore. So you could go about and do like breathing exercises to learn to inhale properly, to expand your rib cage again, and to breathe deeply again. And that might help you with your depression, and vice versa. It goes both ways. Like you can work on being inspired in your everyday life. Maybe you somehow find an inspiration again, and then all of a sudden your breathing becomes better again.
Yeah, that's so interesting about the stress too, because like the stress obviously has so many health implications, but even with posture and chronic pain, like I didn't even think about that part of it. How does poorly aligned posture impact longevity and health? What does that mean for if somebody is carrying themselves poorly throughout their whole lives, or they have an injury that they didn't really address and resolve? Like, what does that mean for their long-term health and well-being?
Yeah, I love that you asked that question because I think it's also like a lot of myths out there when it comes to longevity and people thinking, oh, I just have to get this injection or that, and that will make me live forever or live healthy forever. But it ultimately really comes back to how good can you bring your body back into balance? How can you help your body and your mind to get back into that balanced state, that homeostasis? Because your body and your mind always try to get back into balance, but oftentimes it can't do it by itself because we might keep doing things that gets us out of that balance, and it tries everything, no matter which system it is, it tries everything to get back into that balanced state, but then it can't. And that's when you create all the wear and tear in your body. When it comes to your muscles, for example, it's like you want to have a balance between your agonist and your antagonist, meaning the muscles that work in opposition to each other. When one is contracting, the other one is elongating. If one can't elongate properly anymore, then the other one can't contract properly anymore. So you want to have a balance there. You want to have a balance in your hormones. You want to have serotonin during the day and then melatonin at night. And if you don't have that one, you can't really get into that other one at night that much anymore. And then with your breathing, you want to have just as long inhalation as exhalation. So the more you try to fix these systems or help to regain balance in these systems, the less wear and tear you have in your body, the more you are in that powerful balanced state where you are the most resilient, the most powerful, just have the most potential, and the more you probably are able to live longer and in a healthy way. And because your telomeres, the end part of your genes, are not diminishing as fast anymore because you're more in a balanced state. So the key to longevity, I believe, is helping your body to get back into the balance in all the different systems of your body.
Yeah. How do some exercises, so I'm sure there are listeners who are thinking, I run every day, or I do strength training, Pilates, yoga, whatever it is, like every single day. How do certain exercises negatively impact our posture, right? What is your take on some of these exercises, and what can we do then to be more aware of how we're moving our bodies?
So in general, everything that you take to an extreme, you pay a price for it. I used to be an athlete, and I know like training every day and playing soccer every day and even like studying sports and exercise science and doing all the weightlifting and stuff. I just overdid it at some point. I just did too much. And yeah, that is has an effect. Your body can't properly recover anymore. Yeah, if you do certain things like running too much, that can create more oxidative stress on your body. And you ideally, if you look at chemistry, you want to be in a redox reaction. You want to have both reduction and oxidation. If you run too much and every day, and you pay a price because you're more oxidated in your body. So ideally, that's why the World Health Organization, I think, came up at some point saying, hey, for your overall health, you want to do aerobic exercises 2 to 3 times a week, 20 to 30 minutes with not too high of a heart rate. That is ideal for your health. And then the same with strength training, just 3 to 4 times a week, moderate to intense, but not like pushing yourself again and again. But then there's a lot of people that are super stressed in their everyday life, and then they go to a high intensity class right after because they think, oh, I got to push myself even further, and then they wonder why they get injuries. And it's just your body is never really able to calm down and to relax again, and it's always in that fight or flight. It's always going and going. And so yeah, you might pay a price for it. Ideally, you want to again have a balance, know yourself, so you know what level of athleticism you have and what is good for you and what might be too much, where you're pushing yourself too much, and then do more of the other thing. If you do like cardio every day, then also try to do some strength training. If you just focus on strength training, then also do some cardio to get the best of both worlds.
Got it. For every day, like even the shoes you're wearing, right? Do you have any tips for choosing the type of shoes we should wear, or even how we should set up our workstations as an example? Like if we do work at a computer every day, are there just universal tips that you would give somebody?
I often try to not give universal tips because I like to be more specific and individual, especially when it comes to shoes. There was this whole movement of like barefoot shoes, and then people from one day to the next they would just go and wear barefoot shoes and think that would fix all their problems. But first, you got to look at the mechanics of your feet, and if you have a proper arch in your feet or you don't have any arches or you have too high arches, and all that matters when it comes to which shoes you want to pick. And if you just start wearing barefoot shoes, all the muscles in your feet, they are not prepared to work that much now because they're so used to just walking on like a cushion that they kind of atrophied, so they diminished in a way. And now all of a sudden you want them to work and to do all the work. And then oftentimes people develop knee pain or hip pain and so on, overdid it. So if you would want it to wear barefoot shoes, just start very slowly and slowly let your muscles adapt, and also look at the mechanics of your foot. Can you pronate properly? Can you supinate properly? So it's more complex if you really want to look at what's going on. But overall, when it comes to that, I would say if you want to try barefoot shoes, then adapt slowly to it. Start with 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes, maybe then going to an hour, but don't go and wear them all day right away. And then when it comes to our posture, if you're sitting on a desk every day, the main problem that people have is the hunched over position. So in that case, I can give a general tip here that would be to at least once every hour, try to either get up or in your office chair, just do something that is opening up the front side of your rib cage and your chest area again. So just a simple stretch where you would stretch your arms, go from side to side, lean back a little bit, and really when you are in this position, try to breathe into your chest area here. Try to expand that area without having your neck muscles overly engaged. So if you feel like your neck is overly engaged, then just have your arms a little more forward and stretch like in this position, but just make sure your shoulders stay a little lower. Open up the front side, and then also make sure that you have proper ergonomics. And the most important thing here, I would say, is that you have a screen that's at your eye level. So you want to have the upper edge of that screen to being about your eye level, maybe even a little bit above. And therefore you don't have to look down all the time, because wherever your eyes go, your whole body goes. And that can make a big difference for people for sure. So I'm using a laptop stand, an external keyboard, and external mouse, and so on. That helps me to really be in more of an upright position.
Got it. What about for the women who like to wear heels every day? Do wearing high heels impact long term our posture? Because I used to wear high heels all the time. I don't anymore, but I used to.
Well, it's one of the things, you pay a price for it, right? You look
Yeah.
great. You want to look great, or you want to be healthy for your whole life. So wearing high heels every day is probably not the best, because it pushes your center of gravity forward too much, and so you're arching more. So you have a greater arch in your low back usually, and you're anteriorly tilting your pelvis more. That's what I want to say. So it's more tipped forward, which creates more of an arch in your back. And that over time, can be one of the reasons why you might be developing back pain. You also might lose your dorsiflexion in your ankle, if your ankles are like this all the time, you might lose the ability to do this. So when you then walk, you need the dorsiflexion to have a proper heel strike and to really roll your foot. And if you have your foot in this position all the time, you might, use it or lose it. That's what we're saying. As if you don't use this position as much anymore, then you might lose it. And when you then walk barefoot or on regular shoes, you might not have a proper heel strike. Then you can't activate your glutes properly anymore, and it creates this cascade of potential problems. It doesn't mean, and with all these things, that doesn't mean everybody who's wearing high heels is going to suffer from back pain and so on. But it's one of the reasons that might fill up your barrel, and eventually it overflows.
Right. Do you personally have a daily habit that you like to do to improve your own health, or what is it that, has really helped you the most?
Definitely, I think I never really miss a day that I'm not going to the gym, actually, or like doing some kind of exercises. Mostly focused on rebalancing my body. So some breathing exercises, some posture correction things, some stretches, some activation exercises. And then every once in a while I do some more like strength training, but I definitely never really miss doing some kind of exercises on a regular basis. But then also what really made a difference for me was to having a more upright posture when I'm working on the desk, because when I stopped being a personal trainer really, where I would work one-on-one with people, I found myself sitting at a desk like 10 hours, especially if you have a startup. Sometimes, you're in front of your computer for like 10, 12 hours every day. And in the beginning, I didn't have proper ergonomics because I was also traveling and you don't always have the proper setup. So I was like hunched a lot. And my favorite position would be more like slouching like that in my lower body more than my upper body. And that would put a lot of pressure on my low back and also my neck at some point. So I found myself to developing neck problems and tension in my neck at some point, also because of the forward head posture that I developed from just working on the laptop all the time. So really getting the laptop stand, having proper setup with my ergonomics, and using our sensor shirt that helps to remind me on all these things definitely made a difference for me too.
Oh, great. So going back to your startup, Rectify, what's next for your startup? Because I actually forgot to ask you if it's available for people to use currently.
So we just launched the US company, and
Mhm.
it might take a few more months to have it all set up here and with all the certifications that we need and all the logistics and stuff to be able to really sell it. But that's our next step, is to put up a crowdfunding campaign on Kickstarter where we give people the chance to support us and get a great discount on the shirts. So yeah, we are right now in the process of creating a nice little promo video for that and then setting the whole campaign up. And then hopefully in about 3 or 4 months, we're ready to hit the market in the US, because right now you can only get it back in Germany. But yeah,
Okay.
it's coming. It's definitely coming. Yeah, so stay tuned. And I'm happy to let your community know as soon as we
Yeah.
have it available.
Yeah, that sounds great. On the subject of wearable technology, because I feel like this is a trend, like where do you see that going? Do you feel like the future is everybody wearing some kind of sensory device, whether it's your shirt, your wearable bracelet, whatever it is? Like, where do you see the future of wellness in technology?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the development, it's definitely growing. It's definitely more and more people wearing some kind of wearables. And if you're really honest with yourself, just having your phone with you all the time, it's also
Yeah.
tracking you and tracking your steps and everything. So we kind of do it all already. Some people are more focused on and some not. But the better the technology becomes, the greater the benefits that you can get from them. I think it's inevitable that more and more people will start using that because it can enhance their lives and give them greater feedback about their health and their posture and everything that they're doing. And so, yeah, we are excited and inspired to hopefully grow and be part of that movement as well. And because I think it really can make a difference for people that might not be that aware of their posture in their everyday lives. And we all aren't. Even me, I thought I was aware of like
Hmm.
sitting upright, but just using that sensor shirt, it made me realize that I have this twist in my upper body whenever I'm working on my laptop, and that made a big difference for me already.
Is there anything about health and wellness that you've learned that you would tell your younger self, let's say 15, 20 years ago? Like, what would you tell them?
That's a great question. I think overall to just be patient when it comes to the results that you expect. Because I remember that, every time I found a new exercise and I felt like, oh, it's helping me somehow, I thought, okay, like I'm just gonna do that and then I can go back to doing everything that I was doing before right away. Because it kind of alleviated your pain and you thought, okay, now I'm ready to go out and go running and play soccer again right away. But then, I would oftentimes get a little, get that feedback that I wasn't ready for it yet, and then had a setback, and that set me back for another week. And then I had to slowly get to that point again where I didn't feel that pain anymore. So it's really trying to follow a program, be disciplined with it, and then you can have great effects and you can really help and heal yourself and believe in that there's a saying that goes like, what breaks the body can heal the body too. So the body
Mm.
yeah, the body breaks itself, it can heal itself too. And that's what I really believe in, that if you give it time and have the discipline and the focus, that you can heal almost every problem that you have in your body just yourself. You don't have to depend
Right.
on anything else necessarily.
Right. Yeah. Like if the body can get sick and become injured, then you can also reverse it somehow, but you just have to know how to do that, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really great. How can people learn more about you, your ventures, like all the things that you're working on?
The best thing probably is to visit my website, raminwaraghai.com. You want me to spell it? My last name. It's
No, no, no.
R.
I'll
Okay,
put
you
that
got
in the
it.
show notes.
Perfect. Or follow me on social, my Instagram, same name, Ramin Waraghai. And then I also have a YouTube channel where I'm putting out content regularly about the mind body as well.
Perfect. Thank you.